Well, this is my number two worst, and like you said, your ones send shivers down some people's spines. My one just keeps people wondering why, oh why, oh why. Ladies and gentlemen, my number two worst, the Clone Saga.
Ooh,
hmm
infamous. Infamous.
Infamous in comic folklore, yes, yes, for something that could have been good, but ended up turning out really, really shitty.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the one? There's. I can think of a three-worded sentence about the Clone Saga. It's too long.
Too long, and the writers fully admit they had no idea what they were doing.
They started writing it, and after it got popular, like, okay, we need to keep this going. Anyone got any ideas? Let's pick the fan mail.
Yeah, it became a joke at the Marvel offices, the Clone Saga. They even printed a parody comic like the top 600 ways to end the Clone Saga. That's how much of a joke it had become to them, and I think overall it just exists as this like Spider-Man black mark.
Yeah, I mean, the story is way too long and needlessly too. I mean, it was meant to be a simplified version of the Spider-Man universe. Would you believe that? I mean, at the end of it, what was reportedly said that Ben Riley, the clone of Peter Parker, we won't get into it, was meant to be the only Spider-Man left, and Peter Parker had left. But people moaned and whinged that they didn't want Peter Parker to go, and so it just kept on going. Just kept on going. I wasn't luckily around that time to fully get engrossed in the Clone Saga, but
Same here.
I've read it. I've read some issues, and good God, so it's really bad.
Yes, it is, and again, too, it involves what is it? My co-host Armin's favorite villain, the Jackal, which people still the Jackal, to which people still hate to this day, just because he was the guy who kicked off the Clone Saga.
I mean, that's not even the real start of the Clone Saga. I mean, the Clone Saga started back in way like when the Jackal was actually first introduced as a professor who was kind of obsessed with Gwen Stacy. I mean,
yeah, Miles Warren goes back even further than that. Yeah.
I mean, I remember reading because I've got my Spider-Man anthology on my wall. I'm not afraid of that. I mean, I remember going back and reading that and seeing him putting on the green costume and saying, "Oh, look, there's another Spider-Man." I mean, ooh.
Mm-hmm. And again, too, it's an idea that grew out of the idea that often happens in Spider-Man every so often, and that's the idea where it's like, well, we got to make him hip and cool again.
Pouches.
Yeah, we got to make him hip and cool. Spider-Man's been too happy for too long. Hey, remember that clone we had way back when? What if that was the real Peter Parker, Ben Riley? Yeah, and we've just been living with the clone all this time. Wouldn't that be fun? Not thinking for a second that people would rebel in anger that they've been reading about a fake all this time.
So, yeah, the Clone Saga, just don't.
Or read the Ultimate Clone Saga, which does the whole thing in 6 issues like it should have been.
So before you give me your number one best, I want you to give me your number one worst.
Okay, so again, I don't know if, again, like I said, I did this like the night before, and I don't know if this really constitutes an event or not. But One More Day. I don't know if that's a storyline or an event, but I know it was kind of all over.
It's an event, because it kind of rebooted some things.
It was all over the place, and lots of heroes came into it. Yeah, One More Day. One More Day. The issue that, again, as with Ultimatum, by the end, it just got mean-spirited.
Yeah.
Is what it got like, where you felt like the writers were calling out the fans.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative versions of Peter.
Yeah. Little ugly, little not great. And of course, as with the Clone Saga, this is a whole story that came about just because they wanted to reset Spider-Man and reset Peter Parker without really having to reset him.
I mean, which is all fair and good. I mean, the guy has been going since the 60s. I mean, give the guy... I mean, sometimes things catch up to him. If they said, oh, let's reboot him, fair enough, but do it well.
Yeah, for real.
Tell everyone what One More Day is pretty much about.
One More Day, well, shit, it's, Aunt May is dying because,
Again.
again, I know, which is even another thing where it's like, really, this is what we're basing it on. Peter runs around to try and get all the different heroes to help him, and they're all like, sorry, man, can't do it. Pretty much he just acts like an idiot, even though Aunt May's just like, hey, let me go. It's okay. He's like, no, I can't. I literally can't. For some reason, I'll do whatever it takes, even if it means I have to, like, fight Iron Man, who was my friend at the time, or, I'll just go make a deal with the devil, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
This is the infamous Spider-Man makes a deal with the devil storyline.
Mephisto, as it were.
Yeah, but which actually, there's quite a few devils in the Marvel universe, but
Yeah,
Mephisto is the well-known one.
Yeah, that's the well-known one. I mean, in the end, it's not actually his decision, which is the weird thing. I mean, it's Mary Jane's decision, and then she kind of says, oh yeah, and in like a future issue, it's revealed what she actually whispers to his ear, is like saying, Peter won't ever do this unless I tell him to. Well,
yeah.
Good for you, Mary Jane.
Yeah, way to go, MJ. It was one more day, which was bad, and then there was one moment in time that tried to come back and fix a lot of the problems, and it didn't do it.
See, there's a thing we're noticing here. Things that they get wrong, and then just say, shit, we got to do it. We got to get this right.
Yeah, that's the thing about Spider-Man. Some of the greatest stories ever, and also some of the worst, and they often seem to come from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Of trying to fix, what's not broken, or at least, breaking something when trying to fix something that's broken.
And also, like you said,
we've seen how something like this has been done right with Superior Spider-Man just recently, that despite all the, the crap that Dan Slott got flung at him, he never actually went after the fans, which was interesting.
Here's my number one worst, which I definitely thought you'd have talked about as listed as one of yours, but number one, it's the one event that everyone kind of hates for lots and lots and lots of different reasons. Avengers versus X-Men.
Oh, shit. Well, you see, here's the thing. I didn't even really read Avengers versus X-Men. Armin read it. I just watched his reviews. But yes, please, by all means, go deep into this, and I can talk about the What If, which was actually much better.
We all know about the Phoenix Force. I mean, if you were unfortunate enough to see the crappy X-Men 3 version of it, yeah. Unless you were fortunate to see that, or I don't know, you were fortunate enough to see the cartoons telling of it,
which gets it much fucking better.
Mm-hmm. Basically, the Phoenix Force was the dark, mystical energy of the universe that chose Jean Grey as its host, and after she died, it went off across the universe to do what it wanted. So basically, Sam Alexander, the Nova at the time, raced back to Earth.
Still is.
Yeah. Race back to Earth saying, shit, the Phoenix Force is coming, it's destroying everything in its wake, it's coming for Hope Summers. Now, Hope Summers, since House of M, we won't get into House of M, good God.
It's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Mm-hmm. So basically, Hope Summers was the first mutant born since then, and so she was the prodigal child. And the Avengers basically said, look, we want to take her into custody, we want to make sure she's safe and that she won't get attacked by the Phoenix Force. Cyclops had a hissy fit saying, no, we'll fight you for her. As he tends to do. And so basically the whole thing is a mindless beat-em-up from an argument which had been building up for over God knows how long, of which team is better, Avengers or X-Men. Good God. And that was even the worst thing. It had a really weak ending. I mean,
oh God, yes it did.
Scarlet Witch and Hope Summers just wish the Phoenix Force away, just like
they
that.
wish the evil cosmic force away. They all hold hands like this is the frickin' Grinch who stole Christmas, and they go, Bahu Dore, Bahu, Phoenix go away, and the Phoenix goes away. And we're all just left going, really, guys? Really? And again, too, there's just a ton of characters who act ridiculously out of character.
And it also broke up one of the relationships that everyone really liked, which was Black Panther and Storm.
Yes.
They got married, and then stupidly, because of this event, they got divorced.
Yep. And they still are to this day.
Mm-hmm. And then they still reference it to this day even as well.
Yeah. Yep, in one of the annuals recently, they did a whole story about that. But yeah, Avengers v X-Men, really freaking disappointing. Really, really weak.
And there's
stuff.
A lack of direction for every single bloody character. I mean, there was only
horribly.
one stalemate, which was Psylocke and Daredevil, which is kind of like, eh.
Really?
Yeah.
And again, too, it's one of those stories where it's born out of this really ridiculous idea that comic book writers and creators have in their head, which, okay, it's probably not them. It's probably the suits that have this idea in their head. Books sell more when heroes fight. How can we have heroes fight each other? We just need them to fight. Now, again, something decent did come out of Avengers versus X-Men, and that is the Jimmy Palmiotti penned Avengers versus X-Men What If,
Tell more.
It was only 5 issues, and it got it so much more right than what it did. Basically, it's a what if things went differently. What if Magneto actually did the fucking smart thing, the thing he fucking should have, and crushed the Avengers ship right away? Things would have gone much more differently, and things would have actually made more sense. And he essentially does become the villain of that story. He steals the Phoenix Force for himself, and Avengers versus X-Men have to do the smart thing and have to actually talk to each other like human beings. Like heroes who respect each other and not idiots who need to fight because the story demands that they fight. And eventually they end up saving. Okay, well, they don't actually end up saving the day. It actually gets a lot weirder than that. The world gets rebirthed, and at the end it's just Wolverine and Jean Grey, to where I'm like, hey, you know what? That's crazy and ridiculous, but it's still better than what we got.
Exactly. But one of the ones I actually picked up was the Miss Marvel one that featured Rogue in it, because hell, I'm a Carol Danvers fan, love it. And that comic, those two characters have had years and years of rivalry, and I thought this is all going to boil up into an actual really heated and emotional fight. No, 2 pages, done, and they work together to face Magic and Colossus.
Oh, you know what pissed me off about that, too? They had the AVX Consequences line, to where I'm like, really? You need to release a book called Consequences? You know what I like? I like when I see the consequences in the actual freaking story.
Basically, this was the birth, the sad birth of grumpy, stupid Cyclops.
Grumpy, villainous Cyclops. This was the moment. They had been moving him further and further down, the hero-villain spectrum, but this is the one. This is the one where he kills Charles Xavier while under the influence of the Phoenix Force, and then he just kind of fucks off at the end. It becomes super mutant villain #1. I hesitate to even really call him a villain at this point. He hasn't even really done anything villainous. He's just kind of off with his Uncanny team doing stuff. Uncanny's a terrible book, which is the problem.
I mean, I just heard recently that Dazzler was actually alive again, which was the one thing that weirded me out. I was like, wait, it's Mystique, but surely someone would have noticed by now. Dazzler isn't this cold.
Here's the thing. Dazzler joined Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the funny thing. She joined the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a bit, then got replaced by Mystique. It was actually Mystique masquerading as Dazzler longer than it was actually Dazzler. Then just recently, Dazzler came back, and then she quit the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, there you have it, folks. Consequences mean nothing. Avengers vs. X-Men is pretty much revered as one of the worst. Of course, Age of Ultron is also glamoured upon in that light as well, but it wasn't as bad.
The fact that they came so close together.
We've come to the #1s on the best. So I want you to start, and I want you to give me your #1 favorite event.
Well, tell you what, mine's probably going to weird people out, and I kind of weirded myself out about it too. So how about you go first, and then I'll come back to mine.
Okay, so my #1, again, I toiled over this for a long time, and I actually forgot this event after a while, but I recently had a reboot on my room, and I found it on my shelf, and I have to say my favorite event of all has to be Ultimate Spider-Man: The Death of Spider-Man. That is one of my favorite. That is my favorite event, just for the fact that, although not a massive fan of the entire Ultimate Universe, the death of Peter Parker was an amazing event that shook everything. I mean, it actually got people caring about the damn thing again. I mean,
Spider-Man got 2 great deaths in 2 great universe. What does that tell you?
Exactly. I mean, it upset a lot of fans to begin with, but it brought a new Spider-Man of Miles Morales who's got way, way more fans because of how good the book is. And it all started from this event. I mean, yeah, there were other tie-ins of the weird Avengers storyline, but Ultimates, shall I say? But this was the time that it showed Spider-Man could have been the greatest of heroes. That it was more resonating for Peter because he saved the day, he saved Captain America, he saved the people he loved, I mean, he wasn't
Yeah.
selfish at all. He proved that he was actually a real hero. I mean, he got J. Jonah Jameson to say, "Good God, what am I to call this kid a menace?"
Yeah.
And it was so ironic to me that Gwen Stacy was there, and that Gwen Stacy died in Peter's arms in the 616 universe, and then Stacy stood there as Peter died in the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually made me care again. What did it mean to you?
Yeah, again, like I said, it made me care again too, is the thing, and it was a great lead-in for what we would see with Miles Morales. I think it's rare that, of course, because these comics run for so long, sometimes upwards of 75 years, is that in many ways we don't get the last story. You know, we don't get this is the sum of all the parts of this hero's life. This is what it all meant.
Yeah, and
Or
unfortunately, this is what happened to Peter Parker in the Ultimate Universe.
Or if we do get those stories, they're Elseworld stories and they're quickly written away.
Yeah.
The thing about the Ultimate Universe is that, hey, this is the death of Peter Parker. It's real and it's gonna stay.
I mean, even in Spider-Man, that was a good event where it had 616 Peter meet Miles, but it was more like Peter discovering, oh crap, people knew who I was and knew what I did. And I think one of the most heartbreaking pages is when Peter actually finally goes to meet Aunt May and Gwen Stacy from Ultimate Universe, and it's like, God, how weird would it have been if Gwen Stacy had actually lived that day? God, what would have happened?
Yeah. What if?
I mean, it got everyone. I mean, Spider-Man was good, but this was a hell of a lot better. I mean, this was so resonating to everyone, as it were, and it meant a lot to me because, hell, I'm a big Spider-Man fan. The first superhero I ever met. He's a lot of people's first hero they ever read. And to be honest, this was the one event that really stuck for me because, hell, it actually, dare I say, it actually made me tear at the end of it when Peter finally died. I mean,
It was pretty heartfelt.
I mean, yeah, call me a sissy if you want to or whatever, but hell, I felt sad because this is a sad tale of how he could have saved himself if he'd gone to the hospital, but no, he went back and he saved the day, which was what he did. So yeah, that was my number one. So now it's time to hear yours.
Oh boy, and this is gonna, after your really nice one, your really heartfelt one, really hard thought about one, I'm gonna freak people out with this one, and I kind of freaked myself out about this one, obviously. Now, if you can tell from my list, on my best I had 2 DCs, and on my worst I've had 3 Marvels. So I thought it was only fair I should try and pick a Marvel for number 1. And this is an event that I too just reread recently. It's something I just came about as I moved from one place to another. And be ready for it because again, people are going to be like, "What?" I can already tell. And that's Dark Reign, actually.
Really?
Really, I am a huge fan of supervillains, and I loved the idea of the supervillains winning in the Marvel Universe and taking over. Norman Osborn, he's a hero after Secret Invasion, which, yeah, you know, we could arguably talk about Secret Invasion, but yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I knew from last time you weren't exactly the biggest Secret Invasion fan, and I can't blame you. He becomes the hero, more or less, of this thing. You know, him and his Thunderbolts help save the day, and because of that, he gets made the new head of S.H.I.E.L.D., or SWORD, as it was, and he essentially starts hunting down all the heroes and recruiting his own team of evil Avengers, who are, of course, you know, Bullseye becomes Hawkeye, he gets the Sentry on his team. Actually, there's a lot of really good stuff.
I mean, he even replaced Miss Marvel. He got one of her evil villains, and hell, she was actually considered dead for quite a long time, which was really sad.
Yep, replaces a bunch of them, gets Ares on his team to be his Thor. Just a really interesting team, and we get to see, like, in the main book, their volatile relationship of all them trying to keep together, and, you know, Norman, he's blackmailing all of them and everything. But more interesting than that, I thought it was a cool event that also led to really cool events in other stories, is what it was. We got the Secret Avengers and everything, which was, you know, Hawkeye, who I'm pretty sure was Ronin at the time, living undercover and living on the run and trying to, you know, undermine Norman's New World Order, but they really can't because he's essentially won. This is one of those events where evil won. more or less, and you can't get away from it. Maria Hill gets fired from Shield, and Maria Hand gets or no, what's the Hand woman's name? I called her Maria, but it's not.
I just call it Agent Hand.
Agent Agent Hand gets brought up to her job, and she's working alongside Norman as agents of S.W.O.R.D. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then you got Tony Stark trying to he downloads all of Shield's files into his brain and everything, and then he has to reset it. And Pepper and Hill are just like, no, you can't do that. Tony is like, no, I got to do it, or else Norman will get his hands on it. I can't do it. And yeah, that was just some good stuff. It's like maybe it's like I'm not even so much a fan of the main event, because the main event kind of gets bogged down in crossovers as soon as it goes from being just Dark Avengers to Dark Avengers versus X-Men. It goes a little nuts because that means you got to read the X-Men book and know what was happening there. But I kind of like the effect it had on all the other books where, heroes having to live on the run, heroes having to live in the shadows type thing. It's a nice little reversal of fortunes.
I mean, it actually lasted a long time until after Siege, which was them winning, the heroes getting back their rights. I mean, hell, like I was saying, Miss Marvel was considered dead for a long time because basically after Secret Invasion, she was basically considered an enemy because she was meant to be considered a Skrull, and then Norman Osborn basically said, you can either stand down and become one of my Dark Avengers, or I'll have you killed. And she basically just says no, storms off. He tries to have her killed. She stops the assassin, but ends up getting killed anyway, for what we thought.
Yeah.
And in the end, she gets replaced by one of her arch nemesises, which was Moonstar. But then she comes back and has this awesome fight against Moonstar in the middle of New York. She's basically saying, you bitch, she took my place for God knows how long.
That was a good one. Miss Marvel versus Miss Marvel.
I mean, so what is it? I mean, I said it's good because villains won, but what's is it that the main driving force, or is there something else behind it that really made you like it as well?
Again, I think I've always been a big Norman Osborn fan, and they always kind of show him as like the big ha 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 cackling villain, and he is very much the big ha 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 cackling villain. But this is kind of him trying to choke that down and him trying to fight that part of himself. And in a weird way, he actually kind of gives like psychological counseling to the Sentry, who's another villain who suffers from, psychological problems. And there's a second in that book where, you kind of feel sympathetic for Sentry and you want Norman Osborn to help him, but he's not going to. That he just wants a pet nuke is all he wants, and that's what the Sentry is. Hell, it led to a really interesting Spider-Man storyline at the time where Harry Osborn came back and his girlfriend was pregnant and his dad wanted him to work for the Dark Avengers. He's like, look, I want you to become a new superhero. I want you to become American Son. I want you to get your own Iron Man armor. Only for Peter to find out the fact to be like, oh, shit. What is it there? He's actually planning to kill American Son and make him a martyr. And everything. I'm like, oh, wow, Norman, you dick. I think if I give Dark Reign anything, I think it's the thing that people forget is just how seamlessly it was integrated into everything that Marvel was doing at the time. It was just the new normal. I think one of the things that pisses me off the most about events, and I'm seeing it a lot in DC now and Marvel too with Original Sin for a little bit, where it's like, oh, it's the big tie-in issue, guys. It's the one you've been waiting to. Oh, it doesn't actually tie in at all. It ties in for like a few seconds. And then it's over. I
mean, you can say Avengers in Original Sin is doing that exactly right now, but I mean, one of the good things that spawned from Dark Reign, because after Siege, I mean, you got Avengers Academy, which is a damn good read. I mean, this was Norman Osborn finding these young heroes who've just got their powers and basically torturing them to the edge of near death to see how far they could go. I mean, that was that is still one of my favorites. I mean, Norman Osborn is one of those villains that's like saying, I know I'm evil and I know I could destroy you, but I'm just going to sit back and let everyone tear you apart, and then I'm going to kill you.
Fantastic Four, this is what kicked off the really amazing, probably still the best to this day, Hickman Fantastic Four run, where Reed is all up in his room. He's like, completely torn about the fact that Norman is one, and he's looking into every alternate universe possible to find the one alternate universe where things didn't go this way. where things actually worked out and he can't do it, and that's where he eventually gets hooked up with the Council of Reeds and all that stuff that kicks off from there. So I think it was just a good even the way how you feel about the main event book yourself. It was a good way to kick off a bunch of stories and everything else. It was a good way to kind of shake up the status quo.
I can see that. I mean, it's a fun event. It's a fun, interesting event. Like a saying, yes, the villains won, go home.
Yeah, I know it's a weird choice, and I went back and forth on it a bunch. But I figured I have to give Marvel just a little bit of love because my other two were such big DC events.
Yeah, you DC fanboy. Oh my god.
I get that plenty. You should read my email sometime. Which is ironic. I get the you DC fanboy thing as
we have to come to an end now, folks. But thanks, Joel.
We talked for a while.
Yeah, I mean we talked for a long while, but this has been really, really fun. I mean, it's given everyone a kind of an insight of what to pick up nowadays. I mean, from what is good and what is really quite bad.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. This was a good show.
Well, we'd love to have you back again, but
no problem.
So until next time, folks, go and subscribe to the Comic Book Cast 2 channel. It's really, really, and they get honest reviews from these guys. Dead funny as well. You go listen to some of their riffs and their audio commentaries, but.
You can check me out on Twitter if you want. That's the DVD Grouch on Twitter, all one word. I also have a backup channel if you're interested right now. I of course have my regular YouTube channel where I have another channel called Cape Joel where I'm doing more animation stuff. I reviewed a bunch of the Legend of Korra episodes over there, which you can find the audio on the main Comic Book Cast 2 channel, but I do edited versions on this other channel.
Well, until next time, folks. See you next time.